In the 1940s, during World War II, Russian experimenters kept 5 prisoners awake for 15 days straight. These men were considered enemies of the state, and they were all in one cell. They had enough food to last them, cots without blankets, and microphones were attached in their rooms so the experimenters can keep an eye on them. The catch was that the experimenters had a gas in the room. This was a gas stimulant that was supposed to help them stay awake. Everything was okay for around the first 5 days. The 5 prisoners didn't really complain that much, because they were promised falsely that they were going to be let free if they behaved. Although after a few more days, the prisoners began to get restless, and instead of talking to each other, they started whispering into the microphones that the experimenters were listening to. The experimenters thought that their weird behavior was because of the gas, but this turned out to be very untrue. One by one, they slowly descended into madness. The first of the 5 started screaming. For 3 hours straight. They all began screaming. And after a few days, the screaming stopped. And so did the whispering. After a while, after hearing nothing, the researchers checked the microphones to make sure they were working. And they were. So, the researchers began to really wonder, are they dead? Vegetables? So they made an announcement into one of the microphones, and they told the prisoners, we're going to open the door, and we're coming in. And, to their shock, they heard one response. We no longer want to be freed. Of course, the researchers began to wonder, and after much debate, they decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. Suddenly, after the door opened, the test subjects began to scream very loudly, and so did everyone else. The test subjects were alive, if you want to call them that. The food rations, barely touched. Their skin had been torn from their bodies, and their lower organs weren't there. But then the researchers found that they had begun to eat themselves. The researchers didn't know what to do about this. They didn't expect any of this to happen. But none of the test subjects wanted to be freed. They wanted to be kept in the chamber and have the gas turned back on. They did take the test subjects out, though, and the test subjects went mad. They killed a ton of people. And some of the other people committed suicide. They didn't know what was going on. One by one, the test subjects were operated on, and all of them struggled. None of them wanted to be sedated. The researchers wanted to try to place the organs back in one of them, but surprisingly enough, in a really twisted way, the test subject didn't survive. As soon as he closed his eyes, he died. Another test subject, they operated on him as well, and he struggled just like the others. And the nurse, during the operation, every time she looked at him, when their eyes met, he grinned at her like he wanted more. Eventually, the researchers found out that the test subjects were eating themselves just to stay awake. And when a researcher asked why they would inflict such pain on themselves, it's exactly what one of them said. We must remain awake. They had the remaining subjects put back into the chamber with the gas. They were reluctant, but they didn't know what else to do. Instead, this time, they put them on restraints. One of the test subjects, though, on his cot, as soon as his head hit the pillow, he went to sleep, but then died shortly after. The very last remaining test subject, the researchers didn't know what to do. Some of the researchers were in the chamber with them, and they wanted to close the chamber, no matter who was in there. One researcher took out a gun and shot everyone. He then pointed the gun at the remaining subject and screamed, "What are you? Tell me, what are you?" The subject simply smiled, and he told the remaining researcher, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you, lurking within you all, so desperate to be set free. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence when you go into the nocturnal heaven where we can't tread." The researcher stared at him and aimed the gun at the subject's heart. The EEG flatlined, and the subject's last words were, "So nearly free."